Hello, I'm Roger Petersman, and during the next few minutes I'll be sharing with you the latest in tennis technology courtesy of Babolat. Why is Babolat superior? 4 very good reasons. Number 1, Babolat is the oldest tennis company in the world. We're proud to say Babolat invented the first tennis string back in 1875, and during the last 125 years, Babolat has continued to be a pioneer in the industry. Number 2, Babolat tennis strings are number 1. Our natural gut strings outsell every other natural gut brand in the world 9-1. Number 3, Babolat is the only company in the world to manufacture all of our strings in-house. Whether it's our cutting-edge synthetic strings or our world-renowned natural gut, Babolat personally controls the quality of every string we sell. 4th, Babolat invented the first electronic stringing machine more than 20 years ago, proving once again that Babolat is the pioneer in the tennis technology. And Babolat stands behind its products, offering a full 5-year warranty on each quality crafted stringing machine we sell. It's no accident that Babolat is the most requested machine on the ATP Tour. And it's no accident that 80% of the top 50 players on the ATP Tour use Babolat strings. When we achieve the high-tech, dependable, cutting-edge results that Babolat's known for, it's no accident. Join us now as we review the features, benefits, and maintenance of the best stringing machines in the world. Regardless of which machine you own, please watch the first demo on the Star 3 as we cover the basics that apply to all of our stringing machines. Then, stick around and we'll highlight some of the hottest new products on the market today. This here is our Star 3 stringing machine. It's the most popular stringing machine in our line. What I'd like to do first of all is start off by showing you what the features and benefits are of the stringing machine. First and most importantly is the way we mount on our stringing machine. We feel it is one of the most important things to keep the racket in its exact shape. That way, after stringing and before stringing, you have the exact same shape of the frame. We do this by a 10-point mounting system. You have 2 points of contact in 4 different places, and then you have the 2 major points at 6 and 12 o'clock. What this will do is hold the racket once again in its exact shape so that there's most consistent playability of the string bed. The second biggest feature of our stringing machine is our clamping system. We utilize a double locking clamp with diamond dust coated teeth. What this means is once you lock up on the string and then you lock down on the base. This will produce a lot of non-slippage. It's not like a standard glide bar clamp where you would get a lot of slippage. It's the most secure and easiest clamp to use in the industry. If we move over here and we look at the Diablo drum, what we do here is we try to take a lot of the pressure off of the string. If you take a normal piece of string and you pinch it 70, 80 pounds of strength on that, it will flatten out. What we tend to use is a Diablo drum. It's a round drum in front of the pulling head that we can wrap the string around and then put it in the jaws. What will happen is we'll transfer 80% of that pressure onto the Diablo drum and take it off of that flat, crunching, pulling sensation of the pulling head. Another most important feature of our machines is the constant pull. If you look at like a standard manual type machine, once you crank the lever, it locks at that tension, it's done. It's now 60 pounds. The string then stretches and then it's no longer at that tension. On the Babolat machine, when we pull tension, the machine stops. Then as it stretches, the machine pulls back more. That's what we call the constant pull. It produces one of the most consistent tensions that you can get out there. So when you get a 60 pounds on a Babolat machine, it is truly a 60 pounds. One of the other important features that you're going to be looking at is warranty. Babolat stringing machines have a 5-year warranty on the machine. This includes any component, electrical, clamps, everything. The only thing we don't cover, obviously, is abuse and wearable parts. Pads, if you string 10,000 rackets a year, your clamps obviously would last less than 5 years. So those kind of things aren't covered, but normal wear and tear, including the circuitry. Most of the other electronic machine manufacturers are only going to cover electronic components for like 6 months. And that's something that's very important because on an electronic stringing machine, not everything's manual, obviously. I think those are the features and benefits that we wanted to look at of the stringing machine. Now what I'd like to do is show you a little bit about the operation. And one of the main things about the operation is how to mount a racket on there. I'm going to use a strung tennis racket just so you can see how it goes in, how it goes off, and how the adapters are used. On a standard mid-size frame, what you're going to do is place the racket right in the center of the arms, and there's diagrams on the plates to show you which way the head goes, which way the throat goes. You always want to tighten your arms first, which is the outer control knob. Once you get the outer control knob to where all points are touching, then you bring up your 6 and 12 o'clock points to touch. Notice that everything was just touching. There's no pressure on the racket at all. I didn't change the distortion of the frame at the least bit. I also didn't crank down the knobs. If you'll notice, the racket will move a little bit on the stringing machine. Once again, that's one of the most important things, is to keep the racket in its exact shape. And what we do is hold it perfectly in this shape. It can't contract and it can't expand. The arms are self-locking. What that means is once there's pressure on this frame during stringing, these outer arms are locked, and they'll stay locked until you relieve all the pressure. If you over-mount or over-tighten the arms on the racket before you start, what will happen is by the time you finish, there will be pressure on these arms outward, and you won't be able to get these outer knobs loose. In case that does happen, obviously we know that in the future we want to mount looser. But in order to get the racket off the machine now, you never want to put a pair of pliers or a hammer or anything on these plastic knobs. They're self-locking, and that's not going to help you. What you need to do is to relieve the pressure off of the knobs. The first thing you would do is loosen the billiard at the head. That's the smaller knob. You will be able to turn these knobs no matter what. And then tighten the billiard at the throat. You can see the racket sliding down away from the arms. That's taking some of the pressure off because the racket gets smaller and smaller up here at the top. That will loosen the outer knob so you can get the racket off of there. If that does not work, please, once again, don't take any kind of pliers or anything to the outer knobs. What you want to do is call the Penn Racket Sports and ask for the service department, and they will definitely tell you how to get the racket off of the machine. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to show you how to use the different adapters that come with your stringing machine. How would you know there's a different adapter you want to use for the stringing machine? Well, what would happen is when you mount a racket on your machine and you bring this first billiard all the way up to the top and you can't turn it anymore, and if you look down at the bottom and you're still kind of hanging over the edge, and what I mean to that is when you bring your billiard in, you're actually not touching here at all, then you know you need to use one of our adapters. Your machine comes with 4 different adapters for this type of a problem. The first adapter, and probably the most common, is the oversize adapter. And the way you use this is you take the billiard pad out, slide the adapter over the top, and put the pad on the outside. What that does is it gives you more space out towards the frame of the racket. Now, if that's not long enough, you can use one of our other adapters. We have 2 that come for squash, badminton, and racquetball rackets. This is the 40 millimeter, and this is the 54 millimeter. The exact thing, you want to take off the billiard pad, except for these plug in, and then the pad goes on the outside. This will give you some extended room. For tennis rackets, though, you still can run across certain rackets that this adapter, the oversized adapter, is not large enough for. In that case, you want to use our 47 millimeter adapter. When you use this adapter, it plugs in just like the racquetball and squash adapters do, and then the pad goes on the outside. The difference is your last cross string here that comes across the bottom is actually going to run through the hole in this adapter. And when you go to take it off, obviously you can unplug it, and then the string will slip up over the top there. So that's the 47 millimeter adapter. It would be good for any long throat teardrop racket that's got a lot of length to it from the 6 o'clock to the 12 o'clock position. Okay, now what I'd like to do is to actually start stringing a racket for you so you can see how the different features and benefits work. Get rid of that. Once again, when we go to mount a racket, you're always going to do your outer knobs first, which controls the arms. Bring those up just a touch. Try to center the racket in the middle of the turntable. Then you're going to bring your 6 and 12 o'clock adapters or billiards up to touch. And once again, you're just touching. There will be movement in the racket, but that's fine. This portion, we're really not trying to show you how to string a racket, but basically how to use the Babolat stringing machine. If you are looking for more information on how to string a racket, what you want to do is contact the United States Racket Stringers Association, and they've got a great manual that gives you stringing instructions for all the rackets, and also the basic how to get started, what to do when you first string a racket, where the first strings go, and things like that. Their phone number would be 619-481-3545. Once you get the strings started, there's a couple different ways you can start on a Babolat machine. You can use the center clamps, which is like what you do on most machines. And how you do that is you bring the center clamp around and clamp onto the string, lock the base, and then you're going to pull tension. Once again, you're one string over before you're starting, so you're not actually pulling on the exact string that you're holding. The second way is to use the starting clamp that comes with your machine. The way you're going to do that is you're going to weave one more string over, and you're going to take the starting clamp, and it's actually going to go over on the inside, right up against the grommet. Then the first string you pull is going to be the opposite string. This will pull the starting clamp right up against the grommet. It will not damage the grommet at all. What it does is kind of push the grommet out. It will hold up to 80 pounds of pressure, so there won't be any problem there. That gives you a lot of free room under the machine to maneuver your clamps and to maneuver your hands. When you go to lock on the string, sometimes your clamps won't be adjusted correctly. Let's say you go from a 15 light to a 17 gauge. What you need to do there is adjust the spacing between the teeth of the clamps. There's an Allen screw right on the outside of the clamp. On some of our newer machines, this has been replaced with a finger knob. But for the older machines, you need to use an Allen key. It's a 2.5 metric Allen key. You adjust it so that the clamp is just gripping the machine. You don't want a lot of pressure. You want it just to be grabbing, just like that. One of the other things that I want to show you about the clamps is the locking mechanism on the base. You lock up on the top. When your finger drops down here to the base, you push this over. As soon as you meet resistance, you stop. You don't want to force it over. This is made on a very precise cam action clamping system. And if you put too much pressure on it, what you'll actually do is break down the brake pad that's on the inside. I'll show you a little bit more about this later when we go into replacing the spring on the clamp and how the clamp actually works. Once again, when you're pulling tension, you lock the top clamp on the string, the bottom clamp you move it over just until there's pressure. That's it. Then you release tension. Let's go over to the pulling head for a second, and let me show you a little bit about how that works. What you're going to do is wrap your string around the Diablo clockwise, drop it into the pulling head here, and then pull the string towards you and push the button at the same time. This will take a little bit of getting used to. It takes a little bit of time, but it's actually one hand motion. Wrap around the Diablo, drop it into the pulling head, pull it towards you, and push the button. So that becomes all one hand motion. And release tension. If you see the grommet slipping out, you immediately hit the button and it'll go back right away. And you can see that constant pull. As the string stretches, it's pulling back a little bit more at a time. The next thing I want to do is show you how to set the tension. On the outside of your dial here, you've got pounds and kilos. Pounds are on the inside, kilos is on the outside. Move those around, and there's a line right in the center right here, and you get just make that line point to whatever number you want. So that's 60 pounds right there. Okay, after you have your machine set at 60 pounds, when you're pulling tension, let's say, for example, that the tensioner doesn't exactly catch it right away when you're leaving. So it's going and then it catches, you hear an alarm sound. That alarm means that it did not reach the correct tension. What you need to do is release, pull the string up tight, make sure it catches right away, and then re-pull. And that'll make sure that you're getting the correct tension. Now we're going to talk about maintenance of your stringing machine. Maintenance is probably one of the most important things you can do. A lot of people ask, how long is my stringing machine going to last? That really depends upon you. If you do the things that are important to keep it in top-notch working condition, then your machine's going to last 10, 15, 20 years. If you don't do these very short, easy things, then your machine can last up to 1 or 2 years. So it's totally up to you. The first thing and most important is to get yourself some alcohol. Rubbing alcohol, isopropyl alcohol, either one will work fine. Paper towels tend to work the best because there's not a lot of lint to them. You don't want to use toilet tissue. You don't want to use Kleenex. Those things have too much lint on them. So the first thing you're going to do is clean your clamp bases and the tracks. So just dump some alcohol on a paper towel and you're going to wipe down your tracks. You want to make sure you clean top and bottom. After you clean the whole entire track, both sides, you want to clean underneath the clamp base. The easiest way to do that is to let it hang over the edge, wipe off underneath, and then kind of spin it around, trying to get as much of the underside of the base as you possibly can. After you do that, you want to pull your clamp out and wipe off your clamp and set that aside. The next portion is you want to clean down through your clamp base. You're going to do this by taking a paper towel and wadding it up, dipping it in your alcohol. You only really need to get the first part in your alcohol. Kind of wring it out, fold it over, and as tight as you can, work it down through your clamp base. You never want to leave the alcohol on your clamp base or on your clamp tracks. Most alcohols do have some sort of water base to them, and they will tend to rust your machine. So you want to make sure you wipe all the alcohol completely off. Never use anything sharp like a screwdriver or an Allen wrench to push this thing through there. If you do mar the insides, these are mic'd very, very carefully, and any tiny scratch on the inside of this or on the outside of your clamp will cause the clamp to stick in the machine permanently. And then just pull it right down through. Wipe off the excess. Notice the dry part of the tissue is kind of drying the clamp base as it goes through. So the top part cleaned it, and the back part of the tissue wiped off all the excess alcohol. After you clean off your clamp bases, you want to do that probably at least twice a month. Anytime they get sticky, but at least twice a month, you want to make sure you're cleaning off your clamp bases. The next thing is your teeth of your clamps. The easiest way to clean this is with a hard bristled toothbrush or a golf club cleaning brush, a nylon bristled golf club cleaning brush. What you're going to do is kind of dip it in your alcohol, wring it out a little bit, and just brush the teeth of your clamps. Just run it back and forth through there. In today's market, synthetic stringing market, there's more and more people putting silicone coatings on their strings. The silicone coating will rub off on the inside. You want to clean your string clamps about once every 5 rackets. Always keep your toothbrush and bottle of alcohol around. What will happen if you don't clean your string clamps? If a string slips through there, the first thing you want to do is clean your string clamp. If you immediately go and adjust this, what's going to happen is you're going to wear out your base of your string clamp. And when you wear out the base of your string clamp, there's nothing you can do except replace the whole thing. Over-tightening on this cam will cause the string clamp to wear out premature. So what you want to do is make sure you're cleaning this. Anytime your string clamp slips, even before you adjust it, just grab your toothbrush and run it through the teeth there. The second thing you want to do is clean your pulling head. You want to clean your pulling head the exact same way. You want to take your toothbrush and run it through, cleaning as much as possible. And then wiping it off with a paper towel. Same thing over here. You want to wipe it off with a paper towel. And those are probably the most important things you can do to maintain your stringing machine. The other thing is to make sure that everybody that is stringing on your stringing machine knows not to over tighten your clamp bases and knows not to over tighten your clamp arms. Though if you do those things, your stringing machine is going to give you service for the next 10 to 20 years. Now I want to give you a couple warnings about what can happen to your stringing machine, different things, problems that can occur. When you're stringing a tennis racket, if you pull tension on a string and somebody pages you or if a customer comes up to ask you a question, never leave the machine pulling like this. What can happen is you can either blow a fuse or, more importantly, you could blow your circuit board. What you want to do is release the tension and then go and take care of the customer or your phone call or whatever you got interrupted for. Once again, never ever walk away from your stringing machine while it's pulling. That's one of the worst things you can do. You will definitely blow your circuit board or a fuse, or maybe even worse, even the transformer. So once again, release tension before you walk away and take care of whatever you were interrupted for. One of the other things is whenever you're not stringing, switch the power off on the machine. What can happen is a customer can come over and see this neat looking stringing machine. They can hit this button to see what it does. The pulling head can go back, sound an alarm, the customer gets scared and leaves. There's nobody around to turn off the stringing machine. Once again, what's going to happen is your circuit board's going to blow, your transformer's going to blow, or maybe luckily you'll blow a fuse, but more likely you're going to blow either the transformer or your circuit board. So make sure you just switch your machine off as you walk away, even if you're in the middle of a string job. Your clamps are manual, there's nothing going to happen there. Just go ahead and switch it off, come back and finish the string job when you're done with your interruption. The other thing that you want to do is always position your stringing machine so the cord is where there's no traffic. Our newer power cords are a little bit more sleek. They're one stuck out a little bit more, but you always want to have that where there's no traffic at all. These are a few important things to keep in mind to help you use your stringing machine in the most efficient and safe way possible. Okay, so what we've done here is we've turned the machine around so that you guys can get a better view. And normally you would be calibrating the machine on this side, but what I'm going to do is stand behind it so that you can see exactly what we're doing. Calibration is one of the most important things you can do for your stringing machine. It makes sure that it's well tuned and well balanced and that you're giving your customers the best for their money. You should normally test your stringing machine probably at least once a month with a tennis calibrator. You don't want to use anything like a fishing scale or anything like that. Just a normal tension calibrator. It can be either in pounds or kilos depending upon what your need is. But it can be calibrated either way. So the first thing you're going to want to do is remove the two Phillips head screws from the top of your cover. First you take off the one over here, and then we move over to the one by the pulling head. After we remove the two Phillips head screws, you want to take the pulling head itself off. Right in the center here is a pin. You don't need to remove out any screws or anything like that. This pin can be pushed out from either side. And the pulling head will lift straight off the machine. And you're going to lift off your cover. What we've done is there's normally a clear plastic shield over the cover here. We've taken that clear plastic shield off so that you guys can get a better view and see what's going on. The two screws that we're concerned with, you can remove the cover just by lifting up at 6 and 12 o'clock on the plug for the cover. The two screws that we're going to be using to calibrate on the machine is this one on a box mark 10 and this one right on the end of the box mark 35. So after you get the cover off, you want to put the pulling head back on. The reason you do this is so that you can test the tension again while you're changing it. So we're going to need to plug the cover back in. Make sure that the cover can only plug in one way. So you want to make sure that you don't force it in. The wires will come out towards your right when you're standing on the stringer side. Then what we're going to do is take our calibrator and we're going to put it on the stringing machine. Calibrator, the way you want to set it up is you want to tie a stationary string on the front that's going to slip over your top post. Then you want to tie a long string to simulate just like you would stringing a racket. Then you're going to want to align the shoulder so that this pull touches as very little of this shoulder as possible. Then you're going to set your stringing machine to either 10 kilos or 20 pounds, depending upon whether you're using a calibrator in pounds or kilos. For this sake, we're using a calibrator that's in kilos. So what you're going to do is wrap the string around the Diablo, into the jaws, and pull tension. And you're going to read your calibrator. In this case, we've obviously intentionally messed up the calibration so we can show you how to change it. Here we're reading about 12 kilos on the calibrator. So what we're going to do is we're going to go down to the 10 calibration screw, which would be your low end for 10 kilos or 25 pounds. And since we're pulling 12, we're going to go counterclockwise on the screw just a little bit. Then we're going to pull tension again. When I say a little bit, normally about a quarter of a turn is the most you want to make if you're only about a pound or 2 pounds off. Then you're going to pull again. We turned it about a quarter of a turn, and we're about perfect right there. The next thing you want to do is release tension and set your machine up to 30 kilos. Now I know it says 35 on the calibration pod here, but we don't want to go that tight. Up to 80 pounds on a calibrator is not something that you want to do. I suggest staying at 30 kilos or 65 pounds. So we set it 30 kilos and we'll pull tension. And we're about a half a kilo off here. So once again, we're going to go to the 35 screw and we're going to adjust that one. This time we're a little low, so we're going to adjust it clockwise to go up just a smidgen. Pull tension again. And we're perfect. Whenever you adjust the high tension, you need to go back and test the low tension to make sure that that didn't change. And in this case, since we were only about a pound or pound and a half off on the high tension, it didn't change the low tension at all. If for some strange reason you would be off 10 pounds or something like that, what you could do is do a reset of your calibration pods. And the way you're going to do a reset is unplug your cover so you can get to it. And these calibration pods will turn forever. In order to reset them in the center, what you would do is turn them 22 times clockwise. 22 full revolutions. So take your screwdriver and put a mark on one end of your screwdriver and count that it goes around 22 times in the clockwise direction. That doesn't need to be very accurate. As long as you go a minimum of 22, you're fine. The second part needs to be very accurate. What you're going to do is go 11 times counterclockwise. The 22 times, make sure it's at the very end of the box, and then the 11 back puts it in the very center. Then try to recalibrate your machine again. If you're still off a large amount, what you need to do is contact the Penn Babolat after sales service at Penn Customer Service. After you finish calibrating your machine, you want to put it back together. Once again, you're going to pop the center pin out so you can take your pulling head off. You're going to plug your cover back in, once again making sure that the wire comes out to the right and you're not forcing it. Set your cover on, push your pulling head back on, and then put your screws for the cover end back in. That's all there is to it. Do keep in mind that you can test your machine. Babolat machines don't go out of calibration very often. So test your machine before you remove the cover and make sure it needs to be changed before you take the entire cover off the machine. Okay, now what I'd like to do is take you over to the clamps and show you some of the different things that can go wrong with them and how we can fix it. First of all, I'm going to get these center clamps out of the way so that we're just looking at the clamp bases. One of the biggest things that you're going to find that can go wrong is if you're over tightening the clamp, eventually it's not going to lock in the center anymore like this one does. This one is locking directly in the center. This one I've misadjusted so that you can see what the problem would be. If your clamp is locking farther past center, obviously it's not going to hold as well and it's not going to flip back as easy. So what we want to do is to adjust this so it locks more in the center like this clamp does. In order to do that, we want to take and look right here on the side is a plastic plug. And what we want to do is pop that plastic plug out. Just take an awl and stick it in the plastic plug and pop it out of there. Now, if you have the clamp perpendicular to the clamp base, a number 3 Allen key will fit all the way up inside there. A number 3 Allen key is the same size that fits the 2 Allen screws that hold on the handle. If you have it not perpendicular to the clamp, the Allen key will not go in very far. But if you have it perpendicular, it'll wiggle around and go all the way up inside there. When you wiggle it around up inside there, what is happening is it's going into an adjustment block. The adjustment block is like a brake pad of a car. There's a bowl in here and a cam underneath the lever. As you push the lever over, the cam rotates this adjustment block or brake pad up against the bowl. That's what causes the braking action of the clamp. We adjust this by how far out the screw is in the adjustment block. So when we put the Allen screw all the way up inside, we can turn that clockwise. And what you want to do is turn it just about 1/8 of a turn at a time and check and see where it's locking. As you can see, it's locking closer to the center. So we want to turn a little bit more clockwise. It's pretty close. A little bit more. There, it's locking in the dead center. And that's where we want it to lock. If your clamp continuously locks over to the side, it means that you're over-tightening your clamp lever. Talk to your stringers and make sure that they know that once it meets resistance, it's locked. If your clamp base operates a long period of time way over, what can happen is it can break the spring that's underneath the clamp lever. In order to replace that spring, what you're going to do is remove the 2 Allen screws on the side. Whenever you take these Allen screws out and put them back in, make sure that they only remain flush up against the yellow. If you tighten too much and make them real tight, they'll actually dig into the metal of the inside part and cause damage to your clamp. After you remove the 2 levers, sometimes you won't be able to get your yellow lever off of the clamp base. What you're going to need to do in that case is take a screwdriver and put it underneath and pry up to get it off. You're going to pry up on both sides. In case that happens, what you want to do is take a metal file and take a metal file around the outside of this cam and file down the rough edge that held the yellow lever on. Okay, after you take the old spring off, you want to take the new spring, line it up in the clamp handle, and take the other prong and line it up with the clamp base. Slide your clamp handle down over the top. Then you want to turn your clamp handle, put the 2 out, line up the Allen screws, and put the 2 Allen screws in. Once you get it back on, you can see that it's locking in the center. And once again, please, that's locked. You don't need any extra pressure on the clamp. That's completely locked. Just one push over. Anything more than that is going to put the excess pressure on that cam and that brake pad, and you're going to have to replace it a lot sooner than you think. The next thing I want to talk about is the pads of the machine. We make a couple different types of pads. The clip-arm pads just kind of pop out of there. They will tend to break after a long time of racket stringing. The tabs will end up breaking on them. You can get those by calling Penn customer service and just telling them you need to buy the clip-arm pads. The other pads are the billiard pads. Now there's 2 types of billiard pads. There's a tennis billiard pad, which is very straight, cut, and square. And then there is a squash, badminton, and racquetball billiard pad, which is tapered. This pad will tend to wear a lot faster than the tennis pad. It's made more for the squash racquetball tensions. You can use it for tennis, but it definitely will wear a lot faster. You can get any of these pads by calling the Penn customer service and tell them you either want the tennis billiard pad or the badminton and squash billiard pad. And they both fit right into the 6 o'clock or 12 o'clock billiard. They're both the same on both sides. Anytime you do call Penn customer service, though, you do want to know your serial number of your stringing machine. That'll ensure that you get the right parts for your stringing machine, plus it'll help the technicians figure out exactly which machine you have, what model it was, and what internal parts there were. The serial number is located if you're standing behind the stringer on the right-hand side, up underneath, near the post. There's 2 silver plates underneath there. One will say 8989. That's the date the machine passed the French work code. The other plate will have a 3 or a 4-digit code on it. That's the number you need when you call Penn customer service. If you ever go to string a racket and you turn your machine on and you have no power at all, what you want to do is check your fuse. You want to unplug your machine like I just did and pop the very center clip out. And what you do is you have a fuse in there. Then you want to look at that fuse and make sure you have a filament running down through there. If you don't, you want to replace it with a 250 volt 500 milliamp fuse. You need to buy a slow blow, and you can find it at any Radio Shack. Then you need to pop your fuse back in there, push it in till you hear a click, and then plug back in your stringing machine. You should be ready to go. If you still don't have any power, that's when you want to contact your Penn customer service. Up underneath the cover, there are 2 major components. One is your tension dial, and the other one is your pull and release switch. You'll notice that the tension dial is connected to the pull and release switch with the same type of connector that we use on the circuit board. You can just disconnect it by putting your fingers at 6 and 12 o'clock and wiggling it up. Once again, it will only plug in one way, so don't force it. The main wire will be coming out towards the tension dial. Also notice that the pull and release switch is only held in by 2 screws. They're both Allen screws. You take those screws out and the pull and release switch can be replaced very easily. Underneath the cover you have 4 major components, 3 of them on the front and 1 of them on the back. The first one is the Megatron or the potentiometer. That's this component right here. This is the only wire that unplugs to the side. You can unplug it and then plug it back in. It's good to do that every once in a while to make sure you have a tight connection. The second major component on the front is your circuit board, and these are the 2 calibration pods. The third one is your transformer. And the fourth major component is the motor. That concludes our look at the Star 3 stringing machine. What I'd like to do now is take you through the features and benefits of our Star 4 stringing machine. A lot of the features and benefits are the same. For example, our 10-point mounting system is exactly the same on our Star 3 and our Star 4 stringing machine. The double locking clamps are also the same. Even the diamond dust coated clamps are included on both stringing machines. When we get to the major differences, it comes when we look at how the tension is pulled and how the tension is set. The Star 4 stringing machine is digital, so you can actually see the exact tension that you're setting. It's also in pounds and kilos, so depending on what your customer wants, you can set it up for exactly the tension that they need. It also comes with 2 special function keys. Our cross string button will enable you to choose whether you want the cross strings to be either a lower tension or a higher tension. So if you're an account that believes that all cross strings should be 5 pounds less, you set up your machine to take 5 pounds off the tension for every cross string. Then all you need to do is hit the button and it'll go from 60 to 55. The knot tension key is also a very useful key. What this does is a programmable key that you can push to add a certain amount of tension to your last string before your knot. In this case, it's set up for 8 pounds. When I push the knot tension key, when I pull one time, the machine will automatically reset itself to the same tension it was before. So you can't actually forget to lower your tension and screw up the rest of your string job. It's set automatically. Now I'd like to take you through the pulling speeds. We have 3 different pulling speeds on our Star 4 machine. Slow, medium, and fast. You'd use these pulling speeds at different times whenever you feel like for a tight grommet, or you want to make sure you're holding the grommet in, you would use a slow pulling speed. When you're using a fast pulling speed, that would be for normal stringing. What I'd like to do now is pause here and set up the machine to show you what the Kevlar function will do. The Kevlar function is very important on the Star 4 stringing machine. Because we have such a high-tech sensor in this stringing machine, it's very sensitive to stiff strings. When a string is very stiff, the machine's trying to pull it to 60 pounds. Because the pulling head doesn't move very far, it'll actually pull past 60 pounds to 65. Then it'll release to 55, then pull to 64, then pull to 56. And the machine will oscillate back and forth. Let me show you how that works. So we'll wrap the string around the Diablo, put it in the tension head, and you can see the machine trying to compensate for the stiff string. What we need to do to compensate for this is to set the machine's Kevlar function. So we go down to the bottom and we press and hold on the speed key. The machine will tell you that it's set up for normal strings at a 0 function. Then we press the up key to get the proper Kevlar. For soft Kevlar, you're going to use C1. For a stiff Kevlar, you're going to use a C3. You're going to lock it in again by pressing the speed key. Then we'll go back and I'll show you how it compensates. You'll see very little oscillation at all this time. The pulling head stops dead. In order to get your stringing machine back in their normal synthetic mode, you can do it one of two ways. You can press and hold the speed key and then reset your dial to a C0 mode, or you can turn your machine off and turn it back on, and it automatically resets itself to the C0 mode. Another feature and benefit of our Star 4 stringing machine is the tool trays. We have a separate all tool tray up in the top, and then you have your normal tool tray for your pliers and your starting clamps. And don't forget, the Star 4 machine does have the 5-year warranty on it too. Our 5-year on electrical is better than anybody else in the industry. Many of the functions on the Star 4 stringing machine are the same as the Star 3, including stringing, clamps, fuses, and maintenance. The big difference is in calibration. The first thing we do in calibration is we need to take the cover off. And what you're going to do to take the cover off is you're going to unscrew completely the locking lever on the side. Then you're going to remove the turntable by taking out the 4 Allen screws here and taking the turntable completely off. You're going to remove the pulling head the same way you did it on the Star 3. And then you're going to remove the 4 screws from the cover right underneath the edge, 2 in the front and 2 in the back. After you remove the cover of your Star 4, you're going to need to put your turntable locking lever, and your pulling head back on the machine so you can calibrate it. You will need an assistant to help you because, as you can see, the cord for the cover is not very long. Then you'll set up your calibrator exactly the same way you did on your Star 3. Set your tension to 60 pounds and pull tension. On the Star 4 stringing machine, you only need to check tension at one point. Here we're about 2 pounds tight, so what I'm going to do is adjust this counterclockwise on the outside screw, about a half a turn, pull again. We're perfect at 60 pounds right there. After you finish calibration, just put your machine back together and you're ready to go. Now what I'd like to do is show you one of the hottest new marketing tools on the market, the RDC, or the Racket Diagnostic Center by Babolat. What this machine will do is to allow you to market your stringing business more effectively and make more money doing it. 1, it'll help you sell more rackets. 2, it'll help you increase the frequency of your string jobs and of your stringing customers. 3, it'll help you increase traffic flow in your shop. And 4, it'll help you do customization and make money there too. Now what I'd like to do is to take a racket and run it through the RDC and show you exactly how this is going to work. We take a racket and first we're going to do weight. So we flip out the weight plate, press the button, drop the racket on there, and this racket is 293 grams. Then we're going to do string bed deflection. String bed deflection is a value of tension, but it's not directly related to tension. What I mean by that is the number that we're going to get up here is not a tension value. It's 52. That is an arbitrary number on a scale of 1 to 100 to allow us to compare and to do relative power and control ratings. Now we're going to do frame flexibility. Once again, this number is on a scale of 1 to 100, so it's going to allow us to just compare with different rackets and come up with power, control, and maneuverability ratings. Finally, we'll do swing test. Swing test is a measurement of the dynamic inertia of a racket. We'll lock that value into the computer. Now that we have all the tests done, what we need to do is analyze this data and see exactly what it means. Now, these numbers might mean something to a professional stringer, but to the average customer, they don't really understand what frame flex and string dynamics mean. So what we need to do is break that down to those into terms that they can understand. And how we're going to do that is we're going to let the RDC do it. Press the diagnostic button, and the machine will give you a power, control, maneuverability rating for the racket. So here we have a power rating of 46, which is a B, a control rating of 56, which is a B, and a maneuverability rating of a 91, which is an A. Now those ratings are just like in school. They're on a scale of 1 to 100, and A is excellent, a B is good, and a C is average. What these numbers mean is I can take and run every one of my rackets through this machine and categorize my racket wall by power, control, and maneuverability. Therefore, when a customer comes in and tries a racket from me, I know exactly what the power, control, and maneuverability rating for that racket is. If he liked it, that's great. I can keep letting him try rackets in that category. If he felt he wanted a racket with more power, I can find a racket with more power on my wall and let him check that out and see if he likes that one. The other thing it enables you to do, if a customer comes into your shop and knows that he wants to buy one brand of racket, you want to make him feel confident in his decision. You don't want him just to walk out of your place with a racket, go try it on court, and not really like it. So what you want to do is take him over to your racket wall and give him maybe that racket and another racket with a similar power and control rating so that he can feel the differences in two different brands of rackets. You may make more money on one brand than on the other brand. Therefore, you may be able to push him over to that other branded frame, and you make more money on the frame, and he's even happier because he's tested out two rackets that are very similar and chosen the right one for his game. This is going to increase your racket sales tremendously. Just think about it when Susie goes to the club and says, hey, Bob figured out what I was doing with a computer and gave me the right racket for my game. That's excellent. The word of mouth that you're going to get in advertising is priceless. That's the first way it's going to increase your sales. The second way it's going to increase your sales is by increasing string frequency. And how are we going to do that? Well, every racket that you string, you're going to take over to the RDC and you're going to take a string bed measurement. When you take that string bed measurement, you're going to write down that value. What you're going to do with that value is to compare it with another string bed value maybe 1 month or 2 months later. So you're going to string up the racket, you're going to say, Susie, come back in a month and let me test your racket again, and let's see how much tension it's lost, how much resilience it's lost. So what you do is you take the tension, you take the reading, you press a diagnostic key, and you go into what we call our gas tank feature. So we can tell how much potential energy the racket has left. Let's say that when we initially strung this racket, since we have to make it up, we strung it at 65 pounds, and we got a deflection value of, let's say, 78. So what we're going to do is it says test value today is 52. What was the initial value? So we're going to punch the up key until it reads 78. It says that the potential energy left in this racket is 26%. So we have a test value of 51. We said our initial value is 78, so we'll punch that in. So here we have 23% potential energy left in the racket. We recommend restringing at anything less than 50%. So this racket definitely needs a string job. Let's say, for instance, that potential energy was only 70%. You can look right at Susie and say, Susie, you don't need a string job this month. Come back and see me next month. The credibility that you're going to build by turning away that customer that month and having her come back to test her racket another day without just, well, Susie, feels like you need a new string job. You're actually using a computer to figure out whether she needs a string job or not. Once again, the credibility of that and the word-of-mouth advertising you're going to get for that is tremendous. Plus, the tennis players out there want to come back in and they want you to test their racket because they want to see where it is today. It almost becomes a game. That's the second way it's going to increase the frequency of your string jobs. It's going to get people paying more attention to their strings. That leads me to the third thing, traffic flow. Even if Susie doesn't buy that string job the first time she comes in, she's in your shop one more time. She might need a pair of shoes, a pair of socks, sweatbands, or even a can of balls. She's going to make that purchase at your shop since she's already there getting her racket tested. It's going to increase the traffic flow, which is also going to increase your sales. So there's three positive ways that it's going to increase your sales. The number 4 thing is customization. Obviously, if you can test the weight, the balance, and the swing of each racket, you can match different rackets for each customer. So if Susie has 2 rackets and you test them both and they weigh the same but they don't balance out the same, you can add some lead tape to those rackets and charge her for the labor in that and make even more money. So the RDC is a marketing tool. It's going to help you bring customers into your shop, teach them about the game of tennis in a nice, easy way to understand, plus put more money in your pocket at the end of the week. It can get as technical as you want, but the key to it is to use it as a marketing tool.